Meet you too there, Travis.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Thursday night episode 26 of the Jackson Kayak Dock Talk. Thanks for hanging out with us. What is up, everybody? Welcome back. We have got ourselves a new panel, esteemed panel of Jackson Kayak fishing colleagues, and we are ready to talk fishing with you guys tonight. Drop your questions in the comments. Just keep them coming. These guys, they love your questions. They want to answer every single one of them, no matter how weird it gets. Keep it PG-13, please,
Yes.
and thank you. Before we get this thing kicked off, we'll take care of a little bit of business tonight. Obviously, thank you to Jackson Kayak, Orion Coolers for giving us the opportunity to be here. If you guys are in the market for a brand new, fresh, clean kayak or something to keep you frosty on these overheated days, head over to jacksonkayak.com. Pick yourself out a kayak, pick yourself up an Orion cooler, and at checkout, use Orion Rocks to save 5% on a brand new cooler for yourself. You've earned it. It's hot outside. You need to stay cool. Basco Fishing. Thanks to them guys for the nice and proper swag. We love you, Chris and crew over there at Basco. Cast King keeping us reeling, keeping us good. We appreciate the heck out of Cast King and everything they've done for us here on the 2023 season of the Orion podcast, along with Z-Pro Lithium batteries, keeping us powered all year. And sucks when your battery dies. Nobody wants a dead battery. So make sure that you have the battery that's right for your setup and make sure you charge it. So if you need a new battery, zprolithium.com. Check them out. If you got questions, PM them over. They'll answer them the best you can to make sure that you guys have got the right battery for you. That's it. That's all I got. Talk to you guys tomorrow night. I'm going to drop off here and you guys just have the show.
No.
Oh, so
we need the host.
Yeah, we need a host. I don't know about that. We're going to start with Travis. Travis, tell everybody a little bit about you, where you're from, and what Jackson Kayak you are fishing in 2023.
I am originally from upstate New York. I grew up in Oneida, before Gobies existed up there. And right in our backyard, growing up, I had a feeder to the Susquehanna, the North Branch of the Susquehanna, right around Binghamton, New York, that went right through our property, and I was hooked on moving water the rest of my life. And I got about, I probably hate to say this, but I'm about 46 years into fishing moving water. And I'm trying to keep a little bit of the youth about me, but it's catching up to me a little bit on those, those long days now. But I fish all over, growing up, upstate New York, Canadian border, Quetico, and then the Marine Corps took me all over the place. And probably about 16 years ago, my wife and I moved to the panhandle of West Virginia so I could be right in that trifecta of river smallmouth, which I love doing. So we live right on the water here of a really good smallmouth river in the middle of nowhere, West Virginia.
Very cool. You're a well-traveled man. And a fellow river bastard man at that. I like that. Adam, go ahead and reintroduce yourself to the folks at home.
Yeah, my name is Adam Pross. I'm on the Team Jackson the Canadian side. I reside in Cornwall, Ontario, which is actually really close to upstate New York. If you know Messina, I am about, 20-minute drive from there on the Canadian side. When it comes to kayak fishing, St. Lawrence River is where I spend quite a bit of my time on the Ontario, Quebec side. I do fish all over Ontario, and I do go into Quebec, upstate New York. When it comes to paddling, I still paddle my Jackson Liska. It's my river boat. But this year, I was able to get a Bite FD in the Playa color. It's a phenomenal vessel. It's actually, I would think, the perfect vessel for anybody who's an adventurous paddler like myself, where you have very unique access points and whatnot. I'm involved with the Kayak Fishing Life as a volunteer coordinator with that. And when I'm not fishing, I'm a full-time welder. So yeah, keeping it real up here in Canada.
So, guys, tonight's topic. You ready for this one? You ready for tonight's topic?
Drum roll, please.
Time management. Time management. And I feel like this is a great one because we have two river anglers on the show. Guys that are no stranger to floating probably long distances. But this time of year, the daylight's a fading, boys, and it's not good. Matter of fact, it kind of sucks. Thankfully, we're all on the East Coast time, which is nice. But how do you guys go about planning a kayak trip, knowing how do you go about planning and getting the logistics for a good river float in a kayak, making sure that you're going to be at point X by certain time and managing that throughout the day? Because sometimes, man, fishing might be good and you may maybe paddling a little bit in the dark.
Great question.
Yeah, that is a really good one.
That really is a great question. Quite honestly, I fish a lot of history, this time of year, and going into the fall period when the deer start getting on the rut and everything, I know where I need to be fishing off of history. Now, wintertime is my jam. I'm looking forward to getting these leaves off the trees, and I'd rather be fishing in snow flurries than quite honestly, over the next couple months. When they set up in the deep wintering holes where they're going to spend that winter right until 55, 60 degrees next spring. I'd rather be fishing in snow and sleet, come December and January than contending with leaves and everything on the water. And I don't know so much as the river transition into the fall is so much a reposition. The waters that I fish, they don't necessarily travel miles and miles. Unlike upstate New York, where I know for a fact that that's a different deal up there, different forage base and what I deal with. Long story short, I fish history. I hit the same spots in October, November that I fished probably 15, 16 years ago that I learned where they're going to be setting up and probably pretty close to where they're going to winter. Right. A lot of the waters that I fish, it's very, very hard to get into. I kind of missed your first question about what I run. That's both the Take Two and the Cusax is what I run. It covers everything I do. And depending on the river that I'm on, it will dictate which boat I take. if I've got 3 hours, I know where I need to be, and it's going to be close to where they're going to winter in November, December.
Mhm.
Long story short. And it's also where the bait fish are consolidated. All I fish
Very
is
good.
river smallmouth. So
It's a good topic. I'm fresh off of some good river smallmouth. And how about you, Adam? How do you
So
manage time in the kayak?
time management, I really think, starts at home. That starts with preparation, really understanding your body of water that you're about to hit, understanding your weather patterns that are coming up for the next couple of days, where your cooling trends are happening. No, it's not really like cooling down too much at night, but you are going to get those times where it does really snap off, right? So you need to really focus into the weather. It's such a strong point, I find, when I'm out there fishing. Time management, preparation is huge. I don't really want to go out there and waste a lot of time. So Google Maps is going to be one thing that I'm going to really start to watch. Going to really look at. I'm going to kind of look for changes too. I drive by the river every day going to work. So it's really cool when you can kind of look at it and you can see where things are starting to, where they're going to begin to lower too. The water, because it's really controlled by Lake Ontario. Now, so when I do get out there, and I really stick to the things I know. When it comes to trying new techniques, I save that for other times. But when I'm in that time management time, I stick to what I know. I keep the presentations pretty simple. I keep to the surface. I keep to your sub, and then I keep to a bottom. And then from that point on, electronics. If you want to be time management, electronics is where you need to be, because I know it's kind of silly to say, like, I've spent a lot of time fishing without electronics, but when it comes to time management, I feel that electronics is kind of going to give you great starting points. And if you're able to save those waypoints within your electronics, that's going to give you another starting point too. It's not always necessarily using it for depth and whatnot, but it's to understand water temperature and also to understand where your points are, because, when you, like you said, time management is, it's kind of, you're out there, you're going to play a game really. And that game is focused on how well you're going to do. And that also includes all that homework and whatnot you're going to put in. Just kind of like you said, talking about, like Travis saying, fishing a lot of history. To me, like you've been going there for so many years, you've kind of begun to understand how the water changes throughout. Now, I don't necessarily fish all the way into December and January, because by that time usually the river is pretty cold, and I am not I'm not into that. You know what? I might be later, but that takes a lot of preparation, and so yeah, no, I would definitely say time management is a great it's a great topic. But when it comes to it, it's definitely really understanding that body of water and that you're going to be hitting that day. Like the preparation needs to start. It's not really just go home. Okay, I'm going to go here, I'll grab this, that, and whatnot. It's you got to kind of put in the work, because you really you want to go out there. Your time management, you want to catch. It's fun to go out and paddle around, but when you're limited for time, you really want to be able to set the hook. And there's nothing more fun than fighting a river smallmouth, just having them come in just so angry and just whacking whatever you're throwing at them that day. So time management to me, it starts before you get on the water. And like Travis is saying, like that, when you've been doing it for that long, you have so much more insight to it. And an experience is a learning experience, whether you succeeded or in some ways you think you failed. But when you're getting skunked and whatnot, you're still, in my opinion, you're learning something new every day when you're out there. So I think it's really neat to have a perspective with somebody who's been that long on the water. That's really cool.
Just Sunday alone, I mean, we took off. It was like 2:00 in the afternoon, which was dumb. It was hot. But we paddled straight up 2 miles before we ever threw a line in the water. I mean, it was just like, okay, this is where we're going. Buckle down. Do not stop till you get there. And we did. And we got to where we want to go. And from there on, we knew okay, we're going to go out. We're going to, at 6 o'clock, we're shutting it down and we're going to do nothing but paddle straight back out of here without fishing. And, that's exactly how we managed our time in that moment. It's like, we know we have enough time to get to here. This is where we want to start. So you
Yeah.
just kind of pick that starting point, get to there, then start fishing, burn up that amount of time. But the second that that you have to leave to get back before, and the only thing the best way to do that, just like what you both said, is experience, knowing your river, getting a float in, getting some practice in, developing that time management system. So, it takes me this long to get to here. And if I make it out to here, it takes me this long to get back. So, I think and knowing your times. I mean, just flat out knowing when it gets dark, knowing when the sun comes up, knowing all that kind of stuff is definitely important, especially if you're going to be out on moving water, because number one, people need to know where you're at. So Chris Funk and I actually talked about this the other day. Drop pins. If you have a loved one at home and you're going to be on the river, get on Google Earth, save where you're at, text it to your loved one so they know where you are at all times. Just as important as wearing a life jacket in case something would be to go wrong and people needed to come looking for you. So drop a pin to your loved one.
Oh,
That's my big advice.
Can't agree. I do that. I do that all the time. I spend a lot of time car camping. So I'll drive, hours to get to a lake or a river. And when I get there, first off, my wife knows exactly where I'm going, what my route is. And from there, when I get there, I let her know. And what I do is I drop a pin, I take a screenshot, it's sent to her. She'll also know the people that I'm going to be going with in the event something happens. If I'm just by myself, then she knows that, like, if I wake up in the morning and, she hasn't heard from me, that, there's generally, okay, well, I'm going to definitely check in with him, my launch time. And then from there, my plan to return. Those are such important things on the water, not just for your safety, but for the people that you're with. You'd be like, it's not surprising to hear when people, tend to run into issues on the water, and they've come back and they're paddled or they're become extremely fatigued over the time that they spent on the water. And you got to factor in the parts too, that are you going to be able to offload your stuff, get yourself back up to your vehicle, right. Is there anybody else that's going to be there with you? It's those are a lot of things you got to consider. And dropping a pin, it's huge. Like, in the event something happens, like, that gives people, when minutes to the hours come down to people coming out to find you, that gives them a starting point. And when you get search and rescue involved, it's play by play, and like they're going to need to know that pin, and that pin gives them, like, he launched from here, and if the river's flowing that way that day, well, they're going to figure out that there's a good chance that he's gone with the current that way. They'll have a better chance of locating you. You might be held up on some rock, or you might have run into some issues. God forbid that never happens. But having a plan could really change it for you. You know what I mean? Like, just like wearing a PFD on the water, you just really increased your chances of survival compared to somebody who's not. And even in my life jacket, there's a laminated piece of paper that has my name. If I don't have my wallet on me, it has my name, my phone number. It says on it that I don't have any medical history or whatnot. It gives you a number of who to call in the event, because you never know, like, things happen. And if you're found unconscious on the water, that gives somebody a real good starting point. Because one of the biggest things in first aid is, when you get in there, is to really first assess the situation. And then, you're going to be dealing with that individual, and, if you can find any information on them or about them right there, whether it's a cell phone, because sadly these days cell phones, people usually have a pin on it, so you're not always able to just go onto that. But having a wallet with some photo identification, whatnot, or like I said, I keep that on me. It's been in my life jacket probably 3 years now, and it's got the same information that if something were ever happen, that it's there for whoever to find. Is hopefully we'll be able to make safe changing moment, which could really change your time, right? So
yeah. Okay, we got one in from the audience. Travis, can you talk about anchors? What do you use to stay in place, and how do you manage to stay in place?
Well, kind of piggyback on everything that was said during the cold water period. Quite honestly, I think one of the best things that anglers can do that are looking to get into that winter fishing is to actually scout and really know your water intimately in the summer. And I mean know it. If you got a boulder that hasn't moved in about 15 years, know what your river's doing. And every day when I leave for work, I've got one boulder that hasn't moved in 16 years, and I look at that thing, and whether that water is going over the top of it, or around it, under it, whatever, I can guarantee you, if I'm setting out in December with a daytime high of 50, and that water temp's 34, and I'm going after river smallmouth 3 miles upriver or downriver or wherever, and I might only get about 90 minutes to fish them before I got to get out before dark. I want to know what that water's doing, and which ties in beautifully with Mr. Don Weiss. He's a friend of mine out there in Chicago.
Cool.
Anchor system, very, very easy. I never anchor off the stern of the boat solely. I will not do that. Probably back in 1996, I lost a friend of mine on the Susquehanna that was doing that. And I will never do that. I'm strictly off the bow of the boat. If I want to reduce swing, I'll go off the stern as well. But for me, it's an anchor mate. Plain and simple. I just go right off the bow of the anchor mate. And winter fishing, cold weather fishing, you got to be stationary. I can't even stress that enough. If you are moving, you're going to catch less fish than if you are completely stationary. And I'm talking like sub 45 degree water.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
You better be real stationary with no swing. I went into this for years when my friend Ned Katie and I were writing on the In Fisherman and stuff, and I would talk about my winter exploits and everything, and I'm not moving, my bait's not moving, and I can't stress that enough. And safe anchoring. Now power poles are absolutely, and I hate to say this because it's a great product and I used one for quite a while. They're pretty much useless where I fish, quite honestly, because of the spook factor. I'm an anchor guy. Back in the day, we would wrap the duct tape around the chains and do all that jazz off the original Kusas, and things have come a long ways with the anchoring systems, and thank goodness, we're no longer kind of doing that witch's brew with the anchoring system in our garage, trying to come up with something. And they're just so much more. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we got another question here from Mr. McWhorter. How does time management play into tournament practice, finding fish, then finding bigger fish? And Adam, I'm going to let you lead the way on that one.
Tournament fishing. I'll be honest with you. I haven't done that in a couple of years. I do onlines, but tournament fishing. We used to have a really cool trail out here, and unfortunately, it took no longer to having any more events. But yeah, time management when it goes to tournament fishing is I go back. I really approach it the same way. To be honest with you, I really do the homework. I do the homework. I get out there and I stick to my plan. So whether it's, going to be, I'm just going to use a random, whether it's drop shotting, or, going deep to drop shot, or, staying somewhat shallow and, working that. No, I stick to the plan. And when I have a plan, I stick with it. And now, that doesn't always work out. I think that's where the real tournament anglers, in my opinion, really excel, because they just can seem to figure that one out. And but yeah, no, when I have the plan and it starts working, I stick with it. And when it comes to finding fish in a tournament practice or pre-fish, I also got to think that I don't really want to stick to many of them, so I use a more of a surveillance approach to what I'm seeing, and then I will head back if I feel like those spots are decent. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. I think Lance, you probably have more prestigious tournament fishing practice than myself, but no.
What about practice?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Is it called pre-fishing practice? I didn't think Lance even needed practice. I thought he was just like one of those guys, like cooking up something nice, and then he's just casting a rod with the other hand and selling kayaks.
He shows up the day of to compete, just the mornings of. He's a legend. Texas legend. East Texas legend. So when we're talking about transition, Travis, you kind of started to allude to this just a little bit in the first part. These fish right now are starting to make some moves. They're feeding up. My local area, they're starting to, because the creek gets shallower as it goes up, and down here where it meets the river, it is a lot deeper. So these fish are coming back from those shallow areas where the water has potential to freeze, and they're getting in some of these deeper pockets, these wintering holes, like you said. How do you go about pinpointing those times of movement? Like, Travis, obviously you've been doing this for a long time. Do you kind of have, certain signs that you look for to say, okay, the move has begun?
Well, right now, we've got diminished daylight. I think we're all kind of experiencing right now, no matter where you're at, that when I leave for work in the morning right now, I got to have my headlights on.
Yep.
And I'm dodging deer on the way to work, out of the woods here where I live. And,
wow.
It wasn't too long ago that I could see them plain as day. They're looking at me, I'm looking at them, and I don't have my headlights on, and not a problem, whatsoever. We're starting to transition. For me, it's photo period. When we start getting that diminished light, not only are the smallmouth doing something different from that summer period where, you know, everybody and their brothers out there throwing a whopper flopper. They're starting to transition, and cold water period kind of separates some people that have been around a little bit compared to those that fish fair weather. And you mentioned they're dropping back. They're not going to winter where there's not food. So it's protection from Mother Nature, and you better have some immovable objects in the water that haven't moved in years. And I'm not necessarily talking about logs or, you know, things that Mother Nature can sweep away in high water periods, but smallmouth will not winter where there's danger that they could be having to move midwinter. That they won't winter in a place 2 years in a row where they were pretty much, you know, swept out of an area. My wintering areas are ledges. It might be the deepest water within 2 miles, 5 miles, even 10 miles, either way, up or down river. They'll winter there, and those granite ledges, they ain't moving. And I don't fish in those colder water periods. I don't fish where there's an upsurge in CFS on that outer bend. If you got a river that's doing that right there, I don't care what depth it is, but I'm not fishing that in the winter, because you're going to have an upsurge in CFS around those corners and everything. I don't want that much current in the winter. I would rather fish those long straightaways where you're looking straight up and down river, where you got depth that doesn't exist maybe, you know, a mile upriver, a mile downriver, but you're looking straight up those straightaways and you got ledge holes. And that's where you want to be. And like I said, some of the stuff that could really help anglers is scouting that in the summer. Get you some really good, you know, polarized glasses, and, you know, get on the weak side of a river and wade it and get intimate with it. I do so much walking in the summertime to find my winter stuff, even new winter stuff. I can't stress that enough, where I know some really good smallmouth sticks that have been at this for a lot of years, and they struggle in the cold water period. It's tough. I mean, it really is. It's an art form to be able to take numerous, like, big smallies out of sub 40 degree water.
That's crazy. Just crazy.
I absolutely love it. I mean, I really do. I've got a buddy of mine that's coming up here from Maryland. He might be watching tonight. And I've been teaching him ever since Ned Cady and I were writing articles together and everything. And he's getting better and better at it, and he's really getting on it. And I'd like to teach a lot more than do, you know.
Man, you're teaching me tonight, man. Wow. Like, honestly, dude, this is really cool.
Well, I've still got land up near you, not too far from you. I still own land up there.
Oh, right on, man.
My mom
Travis, that's cool.
The Messina area, Canton, Grass River.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Oh, if you're ever up this way, man, let me know. Well, I'd definitely come out and, you know, like to learn a few little tricks from you.
He's ready to get taught.
Yeah.
So when you're out there and you're talking cold water techniques, Travis, what are you using? Hair jigs, live bait? What do you typically throw this in the winter months to pinpoint your smallmouth?
Oh man, the juice.
The juice.
The real
okay.
sauce, hey?
Yeah.
You can't give away all the secrets right now.
No colors.
No sizes, no line, no nothing. Just, is it a hard bait? Does it have treble hooks on it?
There's pretty much, for those wintering smallmouth, and we're going to be there really quick. The fall doesn't really last that long until, like, at least in my area, where they're solely going to be focused on the wintering, stuff. So, in regards to the wintering smallmouth, again, anchor system is huge. If your kayak is moving, you're wrong. You better be anchored up, and you had better have confidence in the area you're fishing, or you're wasting time, which gets back to our first question about management, with the time. Was I vague enough in that as to what I throw?
It's funny though that when you talk about like how you look at the river. When I drive to work, Monday to Thursday and Fridays too. When you're driving to work, and I'm going along the river, and that's 12 months a year, and I'm watching this river change. I watch when the river comes down, and I watch when the river's high. But when the river comes down, I start taking mental notes. I actually start taking pictures too.
Yep.
And I start to really look to see what's come out there, because it always seems to be fluctuating. And I've heard a lot of people like talk about this, like really paying attention to your fisheries. And when it comes to understanding like what else is out there, and I want to say, was it Chad Hoover? I forget who it was, but they had spoke too about that. And he said, he's like, well, I'll go, in the wintertime, I'll spend a lot of time just going out there, trying, almost scouting, spending most of the winter months scouting, and then coming back in the summer and then just smashing fish left, right, and center, because he understands what's going on in that body of water. And like, it's so neat what you can see when the water goes down. Like, and I'm sure a lot of people, other anglers probably do the same, but to me, it's just like, okay, get my phone out, snap this, this is roughly where it is on Google Maps. I understand, why this is happening here. Even just like ripples, like in the water, your current changes and stuff like that, that's pretty neat. Like, you're really a wealth of knowledge there, Travis. Seriously, this is a really interesting episode.
Well, I appreciate that. If I no longer enjoyed it, or even had a modicum of success doing it, I probably would have taken bowling up many, many years ago. But I still love it, and I touched on it earlier. But I really love to teach others that contact me and get them on fish. And I'll get back to the original question about what I throw without being too evasive. River smallmouth in those months are either going to do one of two things. You're going to have river smallmouth that fish down, that eat off the bottom with a dead stick presentation, or you're going to have some, like on those 3-day warming trends, where they will rise to a bait at maybe, mid or lower mid-tone that's suspended above their head. It's going to be one or the other. And I don't mess around in the winter there's no experimentation going on whatsoever. It's either I'm dead sticking a bait, I might dead stick a bait for 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's such a patience, and it's a art to sit there and really listen to yourself.
Yeah, and you're pretty much sitting there with sleet or snow coming down, and you're hearing your own heartbeat, and and heck, you get a strike and it feels like a wet leaf. Yeah, that's basically what that sub 40-degree bite is, and those are your two winter modes. It's either dead sticking or right above their head, and you better be doing it slow, and you better have confidence in where you're at. I'll kind of fall back on something that was asked of me by Travis Manson on the smallmouth crush when we were talking about scents when I was on there. I'm a really big believer in what Rick Clun said years ago, that if you want to know more, about the owl, study the mouse. And if an angler wants to get really good at the smallmouth game, know what they're eating. And it does change. It absolutely changes throughout the year. I guarantee you. When you catch them, look down their throat, and when they're coming in, seeing what's flying out of their mouth and everything, I can't stress that enough. So, Mr. Brock, to get back to your original question about that movement, it's not just the smallmouth that are doing it, but also what they eat are doing it.
Right. Yep.
My fish in the three rivers that I fish, they started getting on big bait fish. Contrary to popular belief, some of the biggest baits that I fish are in the cold water period. And I might only be fishing for one bite, but it's going to be, a 20 or up. And they get on those big chubs and, big shiners and stuff that are consolidated in those winter holes. You want to be there. I mean, it's fun.
That's cool.
A lot of homework, but a lot of homework,
Yeah. Yeah. That the whole winter fishing, I really wish I could get a chance at it to go out there sometime and do it like where I am. It's, you don't really see too many guys like probably where you are, and even where Chad is, up here, we're you got more guys have moved on to ice fishing, and maybe further into March, especially when we have this early season with the smallmouth in the St. Lawrence River, zone 20. You can kind of get a little glimpse of getting out there very early, March and April. And, I don't really think that's probably really winter fishing, but no, it's pretty neat, especially a lot of the smallmouth guys that you see out there who are really hardcore about it and get out there in the wintertime. Like that looks like can be some really cold days. And I've been duck hunting in the wintertime, and I couldn't imagine just sitting there in a kayak fishing. Wow, okay,
Yeah, and that's also something else to get into. I mean, the winter on the water, fall on the water, when the seasons really start to change and the wind starts to howl like a demon out of the north. The wind off the water is cold. It is something different than standing on the shoreline and getting hit with the same wind. When you feel that wind off the water, it's to the bone. Most of the time, it is cold. What do you do to prepare yourself for those elements?
The right clothing. We're going to talk base layers. Base layers, merino wool. I use icebreaker. It's probably it is expensive for a base layer, but it is fantastic. You do not sweat. It's a moisture wicking. It's breathable. And just before you do all this is always have extra clothes, because once you do get wet and you're cold, you are not going to get warm until you get that wet clothing off. And if you don't have wet clothes, a paddle or a pedal, whatever, but even motoring, you will find out it is cold and your body functions just don't work the same when you're cold. And when you have to get that boat off the water, and that is one thing that can really change it out there for you. But generally in cold water, base layers are huge with me. And then from there, I do have my bibs. I will also use waders at times too. They're not always the best idea, but I also this past year purchased a pair of the NRS boundary boots, and those have been absolutely phenomenal in colder weather. But they also make fantastic survival suits that look like they're pretty neat. I've seen quite a few videos about that. But no, within the good base layer, extra clothing, thick socks, and don't forget, pack warm drinks. Something as simple as just boiled warm water is going to actually warm your core. I also pack light gloves, and then I'll also pack heavier gloves because wind in my fingers is like the first thing to go cold. And once my fingers go cold, it's like my fingers begin to go white, and then it's just like not a very fun feeling. And if you could imagine paddling, that does make for a very uncomfortable feeling. So yeah, gloves, windbreakers. I wear a Gore-Tex jacket, also wind resistant. But no, I layer up so I can layer down if I need to, because I don't want to sit there and sweat, because they're going to defeat the purpose. Once you begin to sweat, you will begin to get cold. So I like to be able to change my layers out. Some of my favorite brands that I like to use are like Arc'teryx, Patagonia, stuff like that. But being able to layer down is a really good thing, because you do start, like in the fall, you can start with really cold mornings, but then by lunchtime, it's like, oh man, it's like almost like long sleeve shirt, maybe even t-shirt weather. But then throughout the day, as it changes, and then you're heading back, and you're like, okay, wow, now we're getting into those fall evenings again, where it's nothing but hoodies and campfires, and you want to bundle back up. So being able to do that on the water is good. It's nice to be able to layer down and at the same time bundle back up when you need to. So yeah.
Yeah, that's good advice. Very good advice. Anybody do the dry suits?
Yeah, that was it. Dry suits. I not survival suits, dry suits. I do not own a dry suit, so I can't really comment on that. Mm-hmm. Do you use a dry suit, Travis, for winter fishing?
I've been in probably about 95% of what Simms has made since the 90s. So I've got a lot of experience with the cold weather stuff, and Simms has got me covered.
Cool.
I've been honored enough to be with Simms now for over 20 years. And
wow. That's very, very
the
cool.
only stuff that I ever wear is that Simms stuff. And whether it's 110 degrees or it's 30 and windy, Simms has got me covered, and it's my one-stop shop for clothes. We do have the a version of a dry suit that just came out this past year, and I've got one half of that right now, because I think it's the only half I need, and that's the top of it, and I really, really like that. Actually, I think Guillermo was in that ad for that, and that dry top that Simms came out with is pretty awesome. I mean, it really is.
Yes, Simms is a pretty fantastic brand.
Yeah, Yeah,
Another
I
audience
can't
question.
thank them enough. They're awesome.
So, what are your guys' thoughts, Steve Carroll? What are your guys' thoughts on fishing a smallmouth reservoir versus the river that feeds it this time of year? Uh, yeah,
That's a good question there. I like that.
Where's the reservoir at?
I'd have
I'd be
no
curious.
idea. Okay.
I'd be
Dale
curious.
Hollow.
I know Dale Hollow.
I like Dale Hollow. It's fun in December and January.
That's a gorgeous lake.
It is.
White Point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a gorgeous lake.
So, smallmouth reservoir versus the river that feeds it. I don't know. I think you're probably getting into some different. Here, like we're talking Del Hollow, I think you could get into some different quality of fish. Would be one of the things that I would think of, because obviously Main Lake Del Hollow is very, very deep. These fish are gonna push in there. They're gonna go deep. They're gonna stay around more bait. Where the creek that feeds it in this particular case is rather shallow as you get far back up in there. So, these fish are probably going to push to the main lake. They're probably going to push to the deeper water. And just like Travis has been saying, they're going to be around that bait. I mean, if you go to Del Hollow in the fall or in the December, January, you're looking for the bait 100% of the time. So I don't feel like for me in my situation, the river's going to be necessarily deep enough, where the creek is going to be necessarily deep enough to harbor what the lake's going to harbor. So I think most of the fish are going to push back out that way. If you're in the creek and you're finding some deeper holes, you might be finding some smaller quality fish than you might be on the lake. I think that's how I would assess that based on my area.
Yeah, well, that is a pretty unique question, and I'm not sure how I would approach that. Like when you're looking at you have the main river, and then what feeds it is feeding into that main, depth, water quality, vegetation. Is there life? You know what I mean? Like that's kind of I think that kind of goes back to like almost like the first question when we were talking about time management and research. Any body of water has a lot of, may have other bodies of water that pour into it. Now, if you're able to Google map it and kind of look at this and have an understanding of, okay, well, like how far does it go back? Are there deeper pockets in there? Like what information can you kind of put together so that when you are going to make that decision, I would feel like almost the main river, I'm not saying, you hear about a lot of bigger smallmouth that will hold up in those creeks, but is that just the luck of the cast? Like, you know what I mean? Like, do those fish actually hold there? Are they coming back up to feed? I really think it comes down to your water. When it comes down your water type, like is there life there? Like I would have to say, for me, like if I was going to go out and fish tournament, yeah, I would probably not. Me personally, I probably would stick to the main river, for me, just because, yeah, I would feel I'd have a stronger chance to find fish. So But that is me personally, you know, like that's, I'm sure there's a lot of guys that would say, well, I probably head up that way. And, you know, so what do you think about that, Travis?
I don't fish lakes, so I'll leave that stuff to you guys.
Sounds like a plan. Let's see here. There's like I was scrolled up
I
and there's all
most
kinds of
certainly did. You know, in my younger years, I most certainly did. I fished a lot of lakes, and quite honestly, you know, I'm a big believer in going where somebody else ain't going to go, and I'm exploring.
Yeah, I like that.
You know, if it might, heck, this most recent tournament on the new, you know, is a great example of that. You know, that gentleman that took that tournament on the new, and I'm not a big tournament guy. I don't even fish tournaments, but I might have something here at the end of the show on that. That gentleman was going where nobody else wanted to go. You know, and he was fishing against a lot of experience on the new because of a waterfall. And hats off to him. You know, go where other people don't want to go. Remain safe, but go where other people either they won't put the effort in or they don't think it'll be worth it. Check it out. You know?
Yeah.
Try it.
Yeah, no, that is true though. Like it's, you know, it is the really neat part about kayak fishing is, you know, the exploration of water and the ability to, you know, whether you portage or, you know, you found an old dirt road you can head down, or, you know, you decided you and a couple of buddies are gonna, you know, do a little bushwhacking down the side to some creek that you think are gonna be holding fish, but yeah, no, that's a really exciting point. And I think that's also, you know, true that, you know, when you are considering to buy a boat, you know, that is something you should really think about, you know, not just how you're going to transport it, but where you're going to take that boat, you know. So yeah, no, that is a really good point, you know, and that's pretty impressive, that New River tournament that they had there with that. Was that the Hobie?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I just found that interesting. Yeah, I really did.
Yeah, they had a lot of big names in that tournament.
And
like,
I'm all about creative launches. I mean, there are a lot of areas that we fish that, I mean, you're essentially not getting in the water unless you're, you know, we utilize the winch on our UTV to get in the water. Yeah. I mean, I don't see other anglers. So, you know.
No, do you? So here's a great question for you, being kind of being an OG River guy and seeing you've seen this sport change more than even I have. Do you feel like we're at a time where like kind of like the rivers scare a lot of these guys? Like you don't hear them talking about the river as much as they used to. Like where kayak's roots is born and bred in the river. But it kind of seems like everybody's like wider, bigger, and moving more towards the lake style fishing.
I mean, I can't speak for everyone whether or not rivers scare them, but there is a definite fall off, I think, with traditionally, and I'm not talking Susquehanna, you know, or St. Lawrence. I'm talking stuff where you might be going over a 4-foot waterfall, or you might be portaging over a beaver den, or that kind of weeds some people out sometimes. I mean, I've got my own opinions on, as we all do, the kayak industry and how far it's come and where maybe we're going. I can't really predict the future, with that. None of us really can, but I got into this to access water that even a jet boat wasn't going in. And and that's one of the reasons that I love doing what I do is I'm not going to run into other anglers fishing where I fish, and kayaks gave me that, many, many years ago with the original Coosa. And I've been in Jackson since day one. That just, that's how I roll. And literally since the first one came out, that's what I was in. I don't think that there's a lot of modern kayakers, quite honestly, that would feel comfortable in an original Coosa fishing the way that we did back in the day. We took them through everything, and that's how we fish. We didn't have other options, I think we're in for a lot of change coming in the industry. I honestly do. And I'll kind of leave my opinion there, but I do think that there's a lot of change coming.
Oh yeah. Well, just
Yeah.
boats like the Coosa X, I think, is a big change. It's kind of it's a hybrid of its own. It's different than both Coosas that came before it. It paddles small. It's a big boat.
Yeah, it does.
But it's an awesome boat.
Yeah, it is.
But it's a different boat from like an OG Coosa. It's like extremely different. But it does. It's hard to explain to somebody that's not experienced it or felt it.
Yeah, I actually fished with a guy, a good buddy of mine, and he has one of the original Coosas there, and it's neat when I actually got to go out and use Jameson's Coosa X in that playa, which I was like, man, it was like I was blown away, like for how big the boat was, just how it paddles. Like it's like we were just on a lake, right? So I didn't really have a chance to put it to its full potential and on a river system, but I was really impressed with how that boat handles and just like the stability in it. Like I could only imagine how that is. Well, Travis, you could probably comment on that, taking it down the river, like you're saying, like, putting it through the paces, really, getting to those spots, and whether it's a little waterfall or a beaver dam, like that's I really think, like when it comes to fishing the river, like the stability, within those boats, and I think the Coosa X it really nailed that. You know what I mean? Like for being that river boat, like there are a lot of other brands of kayaks and river boats, and I'm sure they're just as dandy. But the Coosa X, after I had a chance to do that, I was like, wow, like that is I haven't sat in something like that. Like to be honest, the Nar is a fantastic boat, and it's super cool. But the Coosa X, like, man, that thing, it stole my heart. Like, that's an awesome boat. Like, I was blown away by that, and I don't even own one. So, I'm definitely when that boat, my next boat, I will definitely say will be the Coosa X. So, I really think that's cool, and I think that boat like for you, Travis, like honestly, like as a somebody who's chasing river smallmouth, so you're not always necessarily going out with unlimited amounts of gear. You know what I mean? Like you kind of sticking to your plan when you're out there. And the Coosa, it has it. You know what I mean? It has that management right there. And like, what do you think, Travis?
I wish I had that, quite honestly, back in about 2010, 2009. I wish I had the Coosa X. But again, that's the evolution of hulls and space and gear management and the track, and it's just come so far. It's incredible. There's some of us that are still doing this that remember back when gear track was a foreign thing to have on our kayaks. Gear track was something you went down to Lowe's or something, or back in those days Montgomery Ward, and kind of bolted somewhere to try to carry a couple extra rods. It's just phenomenal how far this sport's come. And I was in I'll put it this way: the Coosa X to me is the ultimate solo kayak for what I do. I mean, it really is. We talked about winter fishing, and I am not going winter fishing unless I know I'm coming home. And I've got the utmost confidence in that boat that I'm coming home safe to my wife. Plain and simple. I've got a lip in the river right behind our house that once you go over that, you're in the middle of nowhere. Literally 15 to 20 miles of river where, there's no cell reception. I'm not trusting just any boat for that. And that's not a knock on anything else in the industry. For years, I paddled a big tuna. Now, of course, the Take Two and the Coosa X cover all that for me. Me getting home safe is paramount. And I take that very, very seriously, just like my cold weather gear and everything that we discussed earlier. I have no worries in that boat in December. That thing's awesome. I mean, it really is.
I think
I can't say enough.
Just talking about the two new boats, the NAR and the Coosa X. It's really hard to get back. The other day I got back in like a Coosa FD and just tootled around for a second. And it's like, after being in those two boats, it is very, very hard to come back to the wider gunnel walls, and the layouts are different, like the rod staging is all different. Like I like the in-hole rod staging. I hate rods sticking up behind me. I just can't stand it. I carry 10 rods with me, but I still have a system to get them all where they need to go. But for me, I think it's just very claustrophobic almost to get back in one of the old boats. I love the Liska. I love the way it paddled, but doing a couple longer trips in the Coosa X, it's like, nope. I think this is my new boat. I really like it. I really like what it does for me. It does the right things for what I want it to do. And the layout's just so freaking amazing. Like, that's the big thing. It's just like the layout is so user friendly. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. No.
And believe me, you still can haul a lot of gear in that thing.
Oh yeah, dry bags, extra rods, whatever you want, you can stuff in the front of that dude. It's cavernous up there in the bow. The day hatch, I mean, you can throw stuff back there if you need to, but like you can put a nice sized battery up there. Then you've got the hatch bin that you can add to it,
Yeah, that's cool.
and the under seat bag obviously still goes with it too. So I mean, you can really take that boat and maximize your storage capacity. It's incredible, and I like if you have a measuring board in either of these two boats, like the floor is wide. Like you see a lot of guys trying to measure on their lap and measure on the gunnel walls and the different things like that. But like the boat floors, like especially the Cruiser X, is so wide that
Yeah,
you can just like, man, you drop your board right there, and it's no big deal.
it's funny you
Set
mentioned
it up
about
on
the boards there. For years, I've paddled a Lizka, and the Lizka has quite a wide. Like you can fit a catchboard in the bottom of that thing, no problem. And
Yep.
when I got the Bite FD, that was one of the new things that I really learned. Like because if you're going to measure fish, you don't want to lose fish. That's the big thing, right? And so it almost became like finding a new way to reposition it all. But to see, that, yeah, like the deck space, having that much more deck space is like just being able to stand up and stretch your legs comfortably without feeling like, you got everything right there with you. Because, you got there are guys out there, they take everything, plus the kitchen sink, you know what I mean? Like they really pack it, and it's pretty impressive what you can fit in the Coosa X, and still have enough room to really stand up. And like when you have rods laying down in front of you, because you're kind of maybe cycling through things and whatnot, and or you're standing up to fish, or simply just waiting when you're climbing in and out of that boat. It is nice to have rods in the back, but when you're river fishing, you don't always want rods hanging straight up, because if you're cruising down the bank, waiting, it's easy to leave, things hanging in trees or break rods, fray your line pretty quick. So being able to lay them, in the deck, but to have that space like the Coosa X has, where you have those gunnels to put it in there, whether you use them or not, like that is, same time, like kind of a safety factor too, that you're able to climb out of there without necessarily breaking your rods or tripping over them and spilling yourself into the river. And so I thought that was pretty interesting part, and I really enjoyed that part about my time that I had in the Coosa X that day. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I'm absolutely adamant about rod storage. Over all these years, I fishing, how I fish and where I fish, I've seen a lot of rods, whether or not they'll hold up pretty quick. They've got to be they absolutely have to be in line with the boat and inside the gunnels for me. And I carry, heck, I might carry 6, 7, 8 rods. They all fit in there. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, it's awesome.
Really that is super cool. Yeah.
Especially if you're using rod socks, you can really, that's my thing. Like I leave the rod socks on there, and really it lets me keep them from getting all beat up, and number one, and it lets me slide a couple more into each tube if I need to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, nothing worse than a tangled mess.
Sometimes on the river, I just like to, like over the weekend, man, it was just 4 rods. I'd put, a couple of movers and a couple shakers on there, and away we went. Because I mean, it's just a game of movers and shakers.
Yeah. I mean, in the summertime, most of those months, like post spawn until right about now, I mean, quite honestly, I could fish with about 3 rods and I'm good to go. But there's a difference between fishing for biters on the river smallmouth thing or fishing for the biggest ones in the stretch. And, 3 rods will do it for about, 4 months for me. And again, fishing for those, biggest fishing might be a 10-mile, 15-mile stretch, maybe the whole river. But that's what I pursue is the bigger one. So, that Coosa axle, I've kind of got a spoiler alert, but I'm a big believer in helping out companies with, that look after us as kayak anglers. And the one thing that I would put out there is yak rods might have something coming this winter that I had a hand in. So I put that out there because they're a little bit different than what's out there.
Yeah, but I've been hearing a lot about yak rods. That's pretty interesting.
As meticulous as I am about my kayaking and my baits and my scents and all this stuff, I'm an absolute rod geek, and I guarantee you we got something coming that hadn't been done. It's gonna be good stuff.
Awesome.
Well, guys, we are at an hour and 15 minutes. So what I want to do now is let you guys kind of close this show out. So I want you to tell the people where to find you on social media and thank any sponsorship or any companies, the family members that you need to thank for getting you where you are here today. Whoever wants to go first, no qualms about it.
All right.
You got it.
Okay. Well, if you're gonna find me on the socials, it's Instagram is Pros85. I'm on Facebook, Adam Fraser Pros. TikTok also, Adam Fraser Pros. Big thank you, obviously, to Jackson Kayaks. I'm for opportunities like this, like just to sit down with both Chad and Travis. Like Travis, you are a wealth of knowledge, my friend, and it has been an absolute pleasure to sit down with you and chat. And I'm going to make sure to pick your brain a little bit more from time to time now that I've had the opportunity to talk with you. And Jackson Kayaks is definitely a big part, and I appreciate them believing in me and let me be a part of the team. And obviously my family, everybody out there, you guys are awesome. And thank you for letting me do all the awesome stuff that I get to do with kayak fishing and supporting me. And like you said, Travis, I'm very into teaching and sharing. I'm not interested in, hiding everything. And the more we can lead as a positive example in the sport and teaching others and allowing others to, kind of like we were, like yourself, somebody who, started very, very many years ago and, kind of caught that bug of kayak fishing, like, as I, had just begun, just a few years ago. It's really awesome. And it's cool to see that. So, yeah, thank you for having me on tonight. And like I said, thanks again to Chad, awesome host, and Travis. You're a smallmouth guru, my friend.
Well, I don't think I answered this earlier, but I am in the Eastern Panhandle, West Virginia, and I don't think I mentioned my day job, but I am a warden at a correctional facility. And right off the top of my head, I've got to thank GSM Outdoors, fantastic sponsor of mine. And like I mentioned, Yak Rods, who believed in a little West Virginia river smallmouth guy in the middle of nowhere, and said, "Hey, let's pick your brain on some stuff," and we got that coming. So very fortunate for that opportunity. Sims, Procure Bait Sense. Anyone that's read anything of mine on in fishermen over the last, since 2014, I'm a big believer in the Procure. For 4 years, I put an application in to be with Jackson Kayaks. Every year around January, I would put a new application in to be a part of Jackson Kayaks. The 4th year worked. Thankfully. I've always been in Jackson. I always will. I'm more than willing to answer anybody's questions, about river smallmouth or Jackson in particular. I just love what I do, and I love to teach. Anybody around the Eastern Panhandle, West Virginia, is more than welcome to drop me a message, and I'll get you into Jackson, and we'll go catch some fish. That's what it's all about.
100%, man. 100%.
Yeah, man. And we appreciate both you guys' time tonight, taking time away from your family and just taking a little bit of time to be with our audience, be with me here on the podcast. Always a wealth of knowledge on the Jackson Kayak Dock Talk. Sorry, I get it mixed up with the Orion. I did another one earlier this week.
Business, man, and show business.
It's just a busy week. It all runs together by the time we get to Thursday. But it was a pleasure drinking a beer with you guys tonight. So cheers to you. And we will see you guys in the comments and in 2 weeks. Good night.